All right, let's jump right in. I want to talk about a huge puzzle today. We're going to look at four massive trends that, really define the world we live in. And on the surface, they seem totally disconnected. But what if they all point back to one single massive shift that happened in one specific year?
So, here it is. This is the central mystery we're trying to crack today. Think about it. Birth rates are falling off a cliff. At the same time, we're seeing this incredible rise in neurodiversity awareness. And so many people are just walking away from organized religion. I mean, what could possibly connect those three things? They seem completely random, right? Well, what if they're not? What if they're all just symptoms of the same big underlying change?
Okay, let's start with clue number one, babies, or, well, the lack of them. So for any country to just keep its population stable, not growing, just stable, you need about 2.1 kids per woman. That's the magic number. But look at this. For decades now, in a lot of developed countries, it's been way down, like around 1.4. And that's not just a little blip on the radar. No, this is a deep structural shift. It's telling us something really fundamental has changed about how we live our lives.
All right, clue number two. This one's pretty staggering. Go back to the mid-20th century, and an autism diagnosis was, incredibly rare. We're talking 1 in 10,000. Now, today, it's something like 1 in 36 kids in the US. Now, of course, a huge part of that is we're just better at diagnosing it, we're more aware, and that's a good thing. But the sheer scale of this change, it suggests something more is going on. The source material calls it individuated recognition. It's this move away from a one-size-fits-all model of what a normal mind is to recognizing that every single mind is unique.
And you guessed it, we see the exact same pattern with clue number three, religion. So, at the start of the 20th century, almost everyone belonged to some religion. Only about 8% of Americans said they had no affiliation. But today, that number is getting close to a third of the population. That's huge. The family used to be this kind of conveyor belt for belief, right? You believed what your parents believed, but not anymore. It's become a massive shift from just inheriting your beliefs to choosing them for yourself.
Okay, our last clue is just about scale. Simple math. For almost all of human history, what was the main social unit? The tribe, right? We're talking groups of thousands. Then we shifted to the age of the family, and the scale jumped to millions of units. And now? Now we organize everything around the individual, and that scales us up to billions. You see the pattern? The number of independent, separate agents in our social system just keeps climbing and climbing and climbing.
So, here's the big idea. These aren't four separate trends. They're not just happening at the same time by coincidence. They are all what you'd call lagging indicators. They're like echoes of one single massive change to the very foundation of how our civilization works. They're all flowing downstream from one single event.
So what is that change? Well, the theory goes like this, and it's actually pretty simple, but also really powerful. Our main organizing principle as a species has shifted over time. First, it was the tribe. Then it was the family. And now we are deep in the age of the individual. It's not that tribes and families disappeared, of course, but the dominant force, the main way we organize society, is now all about the individual.
Okay, so what flipped the switch? When did this happen? Well, the source gives this new era a pretty cool name, the Age of Aquarius, and it points to one single year, 1971. That's the year, it argues, when the old world order really started to come undone, and the age of the individual kicked into high gear.
And what's so special about 1971? Well, this is where it gets wild. It's not just one thing, it's a convergence. Within just a few months of each other in that one year, 3 revolutions went down. In money, the US completely ditched the gold standard. In computing, Intel shipped the very first microprocessor, the computer on a chip. And in our personal lives, the birth control pill became widespread and socially accepted, all at once.
And these were not random events. Think of them as the 3 big levers that pushed us into this new age. Suddenly, money wasn't about a physical lump of gold your dad trusted, it was about networked trust. Computers started their journey from being these giant room-sized machines to something that would eventually fit in your hand. And maybe most importantly, having a child shifted from being a biological destiny to a reliable personal choice. All 3 of these things took power from the old institutions, from the government, from the family, and handed it directly to the individual.
There's this quote from the source that it nails the feeling of that moment perfectly. You're in the living room. The president appears. Your father goes quiet. The world didn't end, it unfixed. Just think about that. For a generation that believed money was as good as gold, watching that promise disappear on TV. Wow. It wasn't that the world ended. It's that the rules, the things you thought were fixed and certain, just weren't anymore.
So that brings up a big question. If we're now in the age of the individual, is that the end of the line? Does this trend just stop here? Well, according to this theory, no, not at all. The era of individuation, this drive towards smaller and more numerous units, it doesn't stop. It just changes where it's happening. It's about to leap from the biological world into the digital.
First things first, let's just look at us, at humans. Most demographers agree that the global population is going to peak sometime later this century, probably around 10 billion people. And after that, it'll start a slow, steady decline. So the number of human individuals is going to level off.
But, and this is a huge but, that does not mean the age of the individual is over. Far from it. Because even as the number of human minds hits its peak, the total number of individual minds in our system, well, that number is about to go absolutely exponential. We're talking about an explosion into the trillions.
And we're not just talking about people anymore, not by a long shot. We are talking about a whole new ecology of minds. Yeah, you'll have biological minds like us and other animals, but you'll also have AI minds, countless software agents. You'll have robotic minds inside physical machines, and you'll even have these strange new hybrid minds, like brain organoids grown in a lab. The very idea of what an individual even is, it's completely expanding.
So when you pull back and look at the big picture through this lens, it all starts to click into place, doesn't it? Fertility isn't about replenishing the family line anymore, it's a personal choice. Neurodiversity isn't about a fixed mold of normal, it's about a unique individual signal. Belief isn't about what you inherit, it's about what you choose. And the scale of society itself, it's shifting from billions of people to eventually trillions of minds.
And all of this leads us to one final mind-bending question. Every part of our world, our laws, our economy, our sense of right and wrong, it's all been designed for a planet of billions of human individuals. So, what happens when we have to start designing a world for trillions of interacting minds, some biological, some artificial? What does something like consent mean, or ownership, or even basic rights? What does that future look like? That's the question we're all going to have to start thinking about a lot.